The 2024 Ford Raptor Ranger. This is the baby Raptor product, the most affordable and arguably the most fun. This vehicle is a truck we've already covered at the launch program where I drove the Raptor Ranger on an off-road Baja course. So what do you need to know about this truck? Well, other than the fact that I absolutely adore this thing, this presents a relative value in the Raptor lineup. This thing starts at a little under $60,000 with destination, and it's mono-spec. You can have a few exterior and bed-based options that bump up this price just past $60,000, but in the grand scheme of mid-sized off-road capable pickup trucks, this is a relative bargain, coming in at a more affordable price than, say, a fully loaded TRD Pro Tacoma or a ZR2. And I will say dynamically, this is the most entertaining out of the lot. From an exterior perspective, they've widened this truck. They've given it the Raptor treatments, 33-inch tires, obviously all-terrain tires with beadlock capable wheels. If you want to go that option, you get a 5-foot bed. These trucks are mono-spec, as I brought up earlier, so they only come as a 4-door. When it comes to actual interior capacity, just like you're used to from this class of truck, back seats aren't all that big. And the interior space, Ford has done their best from a feature set to brighten up the Ranger interior space. So when it comes to Raptor specific goodies, you have some orange trim throughout, this Raptor specific steering wheel with giant paddle shifters, these very comfortable, aggressively bolstered Raptor seats, and some drive mode switches that are specific to the Raptor Ranger. Past that, it's a typical Ranger interior space, which means, yes, they've brought this up market from where this used to be. I know this is an all new generation truck, but it's really not. It's still in the T6 architecture. But when it comes to interior bits, HVAC controls are physical. Yes, they have touch redundancy. Audio controls are mostly physical. And you have this giant touchscreen in the center that does a pretty good job getting you through all the various menus. And you have this B&O audio system, which is very, very average. So let's go put this up on our lift where we're going to give you a brief overview of what this truck is technically. Now, let's talk about this from a condensed perspective, talking about the engineering. The Ranger Raptor is one of essentially 3 different products in the Raptor family. You have the F-150 Raptors, which come in V6 or V8, the Bronco Raptor, which is more of that rock crawling off-road vehicle, and this thing, the Ranger Raptor, which is meant to be a little bit more nimble, a little bit more forgiving on city streets. It's a much narrower vehicle than the F-150 and the Bronco, and it is longer than the Bronco as well. Both the Bronco and this Ranger are built on the same architecture. It's known as T6. It's modular, it's scalable, they can stretch it, they can change the suspension setups. In the case of the Ranger, you get a double wishbone front suspension, and in the rear, a set of coil springs and a Watts link. However, the Bronco gets a pan hard rod. The differences in the back are due to purpose of vehicle. The pan hard bar has a little less rear stability, but it allows for more suspension droop. In the case of the Raptor Ranger, they want a little more rear traction due to the fact that this is a longer wheelbase for the Bronco as well. You get more high-speed stability to fit more of that dune running character of the Ranger Raptor. This gets 10 inches of suspension travel, where in the case of the Bronco, you get 13. The damper setup is also different. This gets the 2.5 Fox live valve shock. In the case of the Bronco, you get a wider or 3.0 from my understanding. There's a couple reasons for that. Packaging of the Raptor Ranger is a little different than in the case of the Bronco, and they felt that the bigger shock would also over-dampen the Ranger Raptor. When it comes to drivetrain, it is essentially identical to the Bronco. However, due to the longer exhaust setup, this twin-turbo 3-liter V6 makes a little less horsepower in the Ranger's application. You're looking at 405 versus like 418 or something along those lines. It's entirely down to back pressure. Same 10-speed automatic gearbox. They put their power down through a rear locking differential with electronic locking front. The body of this vehicle is obviously different than the regular Ranger. It's wider. All the suspension components are different. The steering's been reinforced, but we've talked about that already. Let's go take this for a quick drive on our favorite county roads. Have you driven a car? Setting off in the Ranger Raptor, we're in rear drive, traction and stability control are off, and we're in sport mode with the exhaust in Baja. A little bit of gravel slip. We're gonna go into Manuel mode. Yeah. Only off-roading we're gonna be doing in this video is exiting this farm onto a main, ooh, yep, a little bit of side, oh yeah, a little bit of sideway. All right, let's talk about drivetrain first. The best thing about the Ranger Raptor is the way this drivetrain is geared. There's a good sense of fun. I don't know if it's necessarily making this vehicle great or better objectively, but in this 10-speed, all the gears are very closely mated, so you're constantly shifting, so you do actually have to interact with the RPMs that this engine has to offer. It's more torque than horsepower, at least that's the feeling you get when you're driving this thing around, but there's a good sense of fun. When it comes to the actual audio quality of this engine, it's sort of typical V6. It kind of sounds like a VQ engine in this Baja mode. And the 10-speed automatic, look, this is not a sports car by any means. I know Ford, if you talk to their engineers, they're like, well, we've baked in the Ford performance DNA. But this 10-speed still has some of the truckishness, but it feels much quicker than its equivalents in this class. You know, the Toyota Tacoma's automatic, while it is much smoother than this, doesn't shift anywhere as quickly and it's not as engaging. And the ZR2 from the Colorado is mostly slow feeling. It's ultra smooth, it gets the job done, but this 10-speed has a greater sense of fun to it. And I think, you know, in a truck like this, which is predominantly just stupid most of the time, you want some character out of your drivetrain. And you know, the other thing that helps it in this class of vehicle is it's the only V6. You know, the Tacoma is a hybrid 4-popper, and the ZR2 is that big 2.7 liter 4-popper as well. At least you get a 6-cylinder this. I think this is easily the most charismatic drivetrain in its class. And when you're driving this thing around, despite it being a 6-cylinder, it gets the same fuel economy as its competitors. I'm currently getting 15, driving this thing like a maniac. Honestly, it's probably closer to 14. And on the highway or in the, you know, really conservatively driving this in the city, you're getting nearly 18, which is pretty great. The dynamics, though, of this vehicle, at least as a road-based car, which is currently how I'm driving this thing, it is easily the most fun out of all of the vehicles in its class. It feels like a big truck. There's lots of suspension, travel, and there's lots of movement. But just like we demonstrated in the off-road course in our original launch, this thing has great balance. Yes, the actual grip limits, particularly with these 33s and all-terrain tires, are very, very low. But it's super predictable, right? You know, you get the steering done in the front, and then it starts to rotate like that, a little bit of an oversteer moment. You balance it incredibly easily. You know, you just have to be prepared for the back to step out. The steering in this truck, for a truck, is very, very good. There's no play, there's no wandering. You have good confidence what the front end is doing. I mean, as a road vehicle, the Ranger Raptor is easily the most entertaining out of its, you know, equivalents in this class. In sport mode, you don't have sports car levels of body control, but it's still pretty good, acknowledging what this vehicle is. Again, a very, very tall truck. As we get through these last corners on our farm road, I maintain what I said in the beginning of this video. This is my favorite truck outside of the Raptor R. You can probably buy. For that reason in particular, it's fun. You know, it doesn't feel like a huge sacrifice. And when you put this back into normal mode, particularly when it comes to damping, and you put the exhaust in quiet, it's an excellent riding pickup truck. It may not ride quite as well as the regular F-150 Raptor, which I firmly believe is the best riding pickup truck, period. It's still very compliant, though. This is a very, as it's freaking out because I have a camera on the front of the windshield, it is a very comfortable, compliant truck. It is easily my favorite vehicle in this class, and I think with all of that said, combined with our original video, where I absolutely tore this thing up, it's time for us to wrap this up. Final thoughts on the Ford Ranger Raptor. Quite simply put, this is my favorite mid-size, off-road, lifestyle-focused pickup truck. There's a great sense of fun to this vehicle that honestly, when you're behind the wheel, is largely absent from the ZR2 and the Tacoma. While both of those vehicles are very proficient, I'm sure they are great to drive on an off-road rock crawl, and they are very, very capable at higher speed off-roading. There isn't the sense of whimsy fun that is available in the Ranger Raptor. Those trucks may tow more than this. They tow about 500 pounds more than the Ranger Raptor, which tows, due to the suspension compromises, about 5,500 pounds versus 6,000 in those trucks. It makes up for it in much better on-road driving dynamics. It handles more like a lifted old Mustang than those vehicles that very much so feel like off-road trucks. The gearbox is actually fun to interact with. The engine makes fun V6 turbo noises. There's just a good sense of fun to this vehicle, and the interior space, honestly, is largely similar to the other two. I would argue the seats in the Ranger are a little better than you find in the Tacoma, but that's neither here nor there. So with that, thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon.